Nobody in the kingdom had ever seen the Alpha King's wolf behave this way. Not during wars, not during border attacks, not even during assassination attempts. Yet, on this freezing winter morning, the most feared wolf in the realm was growling at her own guards. The reason? A sleeping woman. The royal sanctuary sat deep within the northern forests. Ancient oak trees surrounded the protected grounds. Fresh snow covered the earth. The air was sharp with winter frost, and beneath the largest oak tree in the sanctuary lay a woman who clearly did not belong there. She was barefoot, dirty, exhausted. Her clothes hung loosely from her thin frame. Bruises marked her arms. Cuts covered her hands. The sight alone was enough to make several guards uncomfortable. But that wasn't what had shocked them. It was who lay beside her, the Alpha King's pregnant she-wolf. The massive white wolf rested on the snow-covered ground. One protective paw stretched across the sleeping woman's legs. Her thick tail wrapped around the stranger's body, shielding her from the freezing wind, keeping her warm, protecting her. The scene looked impossible because the royal wolf trusted no one, not servants, not nobles, not royal healers, not even most members of the king's family. Since becoming pregnant, she had grown even more territorial. Several healers still carried scars from getting too close. Yet somehow, during the night, she had chosen this woman. The guards exchanged nervous looks. Nobody knew what to do. One healer finally gathered enough courage to step forward. The reaction was immediate. A low growl vibrated through the sanctuary. Deep, dangerous, ancient. The royal wolf raised her head. Golden eyes locked onto the healer. A clear warning. Take another step and regret it. The healer immediately retreated. No one blamed him. The wolf lowered her head again, then pressed her nose gently against the sleeping woman's shoulder. The protective gesture stunned everyone. Silence spread across the sanctuary. Even the winter birds seemed quieter. Then, one older guard frowned. Something about the woman felt familiar. He stepped carefully to the side, studied her face, and suddenly froze. No, the whisper escaped before he could stop it. Several guards looked at him. What is it? The older guard swallowed hard. His eyes never left the sleeping woman. I know her. The statement immediately captured everyone's attention. The healer frowned. Who? For several seconds, the guard simply stared, as though he wished he were mistaken. Then he finally answered. That's Ilara Ashwin. The name hit the group instantly. Gasps followed. Murmurs spread. Because everyone knew that name. The rejected mate from Blackston Pack. The woman publicly abandoned 3 days ago. The woman the entire kingdom had been gossiping about. The woman who disappeared after her alpha chose another mate before the entire pack. The healer looked back toward the unconscious figure. Disbelief filled his face. Because everyone knew what should have happened to rejected mates left alone during winter. They didn't survive. Yet somehow, Ilara Ashwin had crossed half the kingdom, collapsed inside royal territory, and been claimed by the Alpha King's wolf. The implications felt impossible, dangerous, important. One guard immediately turned toward the palace. We need to inform His Majesty. Nobody argued, because something extraordinary had happened during the night, and before the sun fully rose above the sanctuary trees. The Alpha King himself was on his way. 3 days earlier, Ilara Ashwin still belonged somewhere. Not happily, not securely, but she belonged. She lived within the borders of Blackstone Pack, worked in the healer's district, knew every path through the territory, recognized every face. For 23 years, it had been her home, Then one ceremony destroyed everything. The rejection took place at sunset. Publicly, deliberately, cruelly. The entire pack attended. Pack members crowded around the ceremonial clearing. Elders stood near the sacred stones. Families gathered to witness the event. And at the center of it all stood Alpha Daemon Crestfall, Ilara's mate, or at least he had been. Until that evening, for months, rumors had spread through Blackstone Pack. A wealthy noble family had arrived from the capital. Political opportunities followed. Power followed. Influence followed. And among them stood Lady Celeste Hawthorne, beautiful, refined, connected, everything a powerful alpha might desire. Everything Ilara wasn't. At first, she ignored the whispers. Then, Damon stopped denying them. Then, he stopped explaining them. Then, he stopped looking at her altogether. The ending became inevitable. Even so, standing before the sacred stones, Ilara still hoped, not for love, not anymore, for dignity, for kindness, for a private conversation, a respectful ending. Instead, Damon raised his voice for the entire pack to hear. I reject Ilara Ashwin as my mate. The words echoed through the clearing, sharp, final, merciless. Pain exploded through the mating bond. Several people looked away. Others watched openly. Nobody intervened. Nobody defended her. Because the moment an alpha makes a public decision, most people suddenly become very comfortable with cruelty. Ilara remained standing. Barely. Her knees threatened to buckle beneath her. Yet somehow she stayed upright. The sacred bond shattered. The connection vanished. And with it, the future she spent years believing in. The worst part came afterward. Not the rejection, the silence. The pack simply accepted it. As though she had become invisible. As though years of loyalty suddenly meant nothing. By nightfall, she sought out her family. Surely they would help. Surely they would offer shelter. She was wrong. Her father refused to meet her eyes. Her stepmother wouldn't even open the door fully. You can't stay here. The words struck harder than the rejection. Ilara stared, confused, broken. Where am I supposed to go? No answer came, because they didn't care. The door closed, and just like that she lost her home. The next 2 days blurred together. Snow, cold, hunger, loneliness. She walked through forests she barely remembered crossing, slept beneath frozen trees, drank from icy streams. Each step became harder than the last. The pain inside her chest never truly faded. Neither did the exhaustion. By the second night, she could barely stand. By the third morning, she was stumbling. The world appeared distant, unfocused, unreal. Then she saw it, a massive white wolf standing between the trees, watching, silent, ancient, golden eyes fixed directly upon her. The creature should have frightened her. Instead, she felt strangely calm, too tired for fear, too exhausted to run. Ilara took another step, then another. Then her legs finally gave out beneath her. The snow rushed upward. Darkness followed, and the last thing she saw before everything disappeared was the great white wolf moving toward her. Ilara expected darkness. Instead, she woke to warmth. For several seconds, she remained still, confused, disoriented, because warmth made no sense. The last thing she remembered was snow, cold, hunger, the feeling of her body finally giving up. Yet now soft blankets covered her. A fire crackled nearby, and the scent of pine wood drifted through the air. Slowly, she opened her eyes. A ceiling, stone walls, a large room, definitely not a forest. Panic arrived immediately. She tried sitting up. Pain shot through her body. A sharp gasp escaped her lips. Before she could move again, a deep growl filled the room. Ilara froze. The sound was familiar, ancient, powerful. Turning her head carefully, she found the source and nearly stopped breathing. The massive white wolf lay beside her bed, watching, golden eyes fixed directly on her. The same wolf from the forest. The same wolf she saw before collapsing. The royal wolf. The realization hit instantly. Everyone in the kingdom knew the stories. The Alpha King's wolf, the guardian of the royal bloodline, one of the most feared creatures in the realm. And she was lying beside Ilara's bed, as though guarding her. The wolf's ears lifted slightly. The growling stopped. A strange silence settled over the room. Then the door opened. Several healers entered carrying medicine and fresh bandages. The moment they approached, the wolf stood. The reaction was immediate. Every healer froze. The wolf stepped directly between them and Ilara. Protective, possessive, warning. One healer sighed heavily. Again, another rubbed his forehead. This is impossible. Ilara stared, completely confused. What is happening? The oldest healer looked at her, then laughed softly. We were hoping you could tell us. The answer made no sense. None at all. The door opened again. This time, the atmosphere changed immediately. Everyone straightened. Everyone became quiet, because the Alpha King had arrived. Kaelin Draven entered the room without hurry, tall, calm, commanding, the sort of presence that naturally drew attention. Yet even he seemed distracted. His gaze moved from Ilara to the wolf, then back again. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Finally, Kaelin addressed the wolf. Move. The command carried absolute authority. The wolf ignored him. The room became very quiet. Several healers exchanged nervous looks. Apparently, this wasn't normal. Kaelin frowned slightly. Move. Again, nothing happened. The wolf remained exactly where she stood, protecting Ilara. The silence deepened, because if the royal wolf refused the Alpha King himself, something extraordinary was happening. Kaelin studied the animal carefully, then looked toward Ilara. The bruises, the cuts, the obvious signs of neglect. His expression darkened, not with anger toward her, toward whoever allowed this to happen. One healer quietly handed him a report. Kaelin read it. His jaw tightened. Malnourished, severely exhausted, untreated injuries, evidence of prolonged hardship. The list continued. Each detail made the room colder. Finally, the Alpha King folded the report. Someone failed this woman. The statement carried dangerous calm, the sort that often preceded consequences. Before anyone could respond, another healer rushed into the room, breathless, alarmed, holding several notes. Your Majesty. Kaelin turned. The healer looked from him to the wolf, then to Ilara, clearly shaken. What is it? The healer swallowed, then delivered the words that stunned everyone. It's the royal pups. Silence. The room froze. The healer looked directly at Ilara and whispered, They're reacting whenever she enters the room. The room fell silent. Even the royal wolf lifted her head. For several seconds, nobody spoke, because everyone understood the significance of the healer's words. The royal pups, the unborn heirs of the kingdom. Nothing involving them was ever ordinary. Kaelin's expression hardened immediately. What do you mean reacting? The healer swallowed, clearly nervous. Every time Lady Ilara enters the nursery wing, the pups become active. A pause. Then, unusually active. The Alpha King frowned. That alone wasn't enough to justify panic. Pregnant wolves often experienced changes, unexpected movements, fluctuations. The healer seemed to understand his skepticism, because he quickly continued. No, Your Majesty, not normal movement. The room grew quiet again. The healer unfolded several notes. His hands trembled slightly. The royal wolf has been restless for weeks. That part was true. Everyone knew it. The pregnancy had been difficult. The wolf slept poorly, ate irregularly, rejected most healers. Nothing they tried seemed to help. Until Ilara arrived. The healer pointed toward the reports. Within an hour of bringing Lady Ilara into the palace, everything changed. Kaelin's eyes narrowed. Changed how? The answer came immediately. The wolf calmed down. Silence. Another healer stepped forward. The pups did too. A third joined the conversation. For the first time in months, the room grew increasingly uncomfortable. Because suddenly, everyone remembered. The royal wolf had slept peacefully the previous night, eaten normally that morning, allowed examinations without incident. Every improvement occurred after finding Ilara beneath the oak tree. Coincidence felt less convincing with every passing second. Kaelin looked toward the wolf. The massive white animal remained beside Ilara's bed, protective, watchful, calm. Then his gaze shifted to Ilara herself. She looked just as confused as everyone else, which somehow made the situation stranger, because whatever was happening, she clearly wasn't causing it intentionally. The oldest healer finally spoke. "We searched the archives." Kaelin immediately looked up. That captured his attention. The royal archives contained centuries of records. Most healers avoided them, unless absolutely necessary. The old healer hesitated, then continued carefully. We found something." The atmosphere shifted instantly. Several younger healers exchanged uneasy looks. Apparently, they already knew what came next. Kaelin folded his arms. "Explain." The old healer opened a weathered book. Ancient pages crackled softly. The text inside looked centuries old. Nearly 600 years ago, a similar case was recorded. Nobody interrupted. The healer slowly turned several pages, then stopped. His expression grew serious. The royal bloodline experienced unusual reactions during a difficult pregnancy. A pause. Then, the cause was a woman blessed by the moon goddess. The room became very still. Even Ilara felt a chill run through her, because every wolf knew those stories. Most dismissed them as myths, legends, fairy tales told to children. The healer looked directly at her. The records describe a rare ability. Another pause, longer this time. Then, the ability to calm royal bloodlines. Silence followed. Heavy, uncomfortable, dangerous. Because suddenly, Ilara wasn't merely a rejected mate. She wasn't merely a woman rescued from the snow. She might be something far more important, something the kingdom hadn't seen for centuries. Kaelin closed the ancient book slowly, his expression unreadable. Then, he looked toward the window. Snow continued falling beyond the glass. The kingdom remained unaware of what was unfolding inside its palace. For now, because if the healers were right, the mystery surrounding Ilara Ashwin was only beginning, and Kaelin intended to uncover every secret hidden inside it. The investigation began that same afternoon. Kaelin wasted no time. If there was even a small possibility that the ancient records were accurate, he needed answers. Immediately, the Alpha King summoned historians, genealogists, royal archivists, anyone capable of tracing bloodlines buried beneath centuries of forgotten records. By sunset, the palace archives were in chaos. Books covered tables, scrolls filled entire rooms. Dust floated through shafts of golden light as researchers searched for anything connected to Ilara Ashwin. At first, they found very little, which only made Kaelin more suspicious. Every wolf left traces, birth records, marriage contracts, family registries. Yet Ilara's lineage seemed strangely incomplete. Pieces were missing, pages removed, Names erased. The pattern appeared too deliberate to be accidental. Someone had hidden something. The question was why. 3 days passed. Then a breakthrough arrived. One exhausted archivist stumbled into the royal study, carrying a stack of weathered documents. His hands shook. His face had gone pale. The reaction alone caught everyone's attention. "What is it?" Kaelin asked. The man swallowed hard, then carefully placed the papers on the desk. "Your Majesty," he hesitated, as though struggling to believe the evidence himself. "I think Blackstone Pack never knew who Ilara really was." Silence filled the room. The archivist unfolded the first document. Ancient seals marked the corners. A family registry, centuries old. Kaelin leaned forward. The names meant nothing at first. Then one name appeared repeatedly: Moonvale. The room instantly became quiet, because everyone recognized that bloodline. The Moonvale Lunas, one of the oldest and most respected families in wolf history. According to official records, the line disappeared generations ago, or so everyone believed. The archivist pointed toward several connected entries. Carefully preserved, deliberately hidden, proof the surviving branch had not vanished. It had simply changed names, disappeared into smaller territories, avoided attention, protected itself, and eventually produced Ilara Ashwin. The revelation stunned everyone because the implications were enormous. A rejected mate, a possible moon goddess blessing, and now an ancient Luna bloodline. The pieces were beginning to connect. Kaelin stared at the documents. His expression darkened because another realization followed immediately. Blackstone Pack had no idea. If they had known, Ilara would never have been treated the way she was. Never abandoned, never rejected publicly, never left to freeze in the snow. Or perhaps they knew exactly what she was and simply didn't care. The possibility angered him more than he expected. By evening, rumors began spreading through the palace. By morning, they reached neighboring territories. Within a week, the entire kingdom buzzed with speculation. People wanted answers. Nobles wanted access. Political families wanted alliances. Everyone suddenly cared about Ilara Ashwin, the same woman nobody bothered helping a week earlier. The hypocrisy wasn't lost on Kaelin, nor was it lost on Ilara, because while nobles argued about bloodlines and destiny, she sat quietly inside the palace gardens, still trying to understand why her life had changed so quickly. The peace didn't last. It never does. 3 days after the news spread beyond the capital, a royal messenger arrived, breathless, from the southern border. His face carried obvious concern. Kaelin knew immediately the report would be unpleasant. The messenger bowed deeply, then delivered the words everyone expected. Blackstone Pack has sent a formal request. The room went still. Kaelin already knew what came next. The messenger lowered his gaze. They want Ilara returned. The request arrived wrapped in expensive parchment, sealed with the crest of Blackstone Pack, the same crest that had watched Ilara's rejection, the same crest that had allowed her to walk into a snowstorm alone, the same crest that had done absolutely nothing while she lost everything. Now they wanted her back. Kaelin stared at the document for a long moment, then laughed once. The sound contained no humor, only disbelief. The council members gathered around the table looked equally unimpressed. One advisor cleared his throat. "The timing is interesting." That was a diplomatic way of saying convenient, very convenient. For years, Ilara had been nothing more than an ordinary pack member. Then suddenly, she became important. An ancient bloodline, a possible moon goddess blessing, a woman capable of calming the future royal heirs. And now, Blackstone Pack remembered she existed. The hypocrisy was difficult to ignore. Unfortunately, Blackstone Pack wasn't finished. 2 days later, a delegation arrived at the palace gates. Pack elders, senior representatives, several officials, every person who once ignored Ilara now seemed deeply concerned about her well-being. The performance would have been impressive if it weren't so transparent. Ilara watched their arrival from a palace balcony. A strange feeling settled inside her chest. Not anger, not sadness, something colder, recognition, because she knew exactly why they had come. The same people who refused to help her now smiled warmly whenever her name appeared. The same people who looked away during her rejection now called her valuable. It was difficult not to notice. Beside her, the royal wolf released a low growl. The massive white animal had become a constant presence. Where Ilara went, the wolf followed. The bond confused everyone, including Ilara. Yet somehow, it also comforted her. The wolf's growling intensified as the delegation entered the palace courtyard. Apparently, she wasn't impressed either. That evening, the official meeting began. The Blackstone representatives filled one side of the council chamber. Kaelin occupied the other. Ilara sat quietly nearby. Several elders smiled at her. Too warmly, too eagerly. The expressions made her uncomfortable. Finally, the oldest representative stood. Lady Ilara belongs to Blackstone Pack. The statement immediately soured the room. Because belonging had not mattered much when she was starving in the snow, Kaelin's expression remained neutral, dangerously neutral. The elder continued. "We wish to welcome her home." Silence followed. No one seemed particularly convinced, especially not Ilara. The representative launched into a prepared speech about family, loyalty, and community. Every sentence sounded carefully rehearsed. Every word arrived several weeks too late. When the meeting finally ended, nobody felt satisfied, least of all the delegation, because Kaelin offered no answer, no agreement, no promises, only silence. The next morning brought a far greater problem. A rider arrived before dawn. His horse nearly collapsed from exhaustion. The messenger demanded immediate access to the palace. Within minutes, word spread through the royal residence. The Blackstone delegation wasn't enough. Their former alpha had arrived personally. Damon Crestfall, the man who rejected Ilara, the man who destroyed her life. And according to the messenger, he wasn't leaving without her. The palace courtyard fell silent. When Damon Crestfall arrived, word had spread ahead of him. Servants whispered. Guards exchanged looks. Even several council members paused important meetings to witness the spectacle, because everyone knew who Damon was, and everyone knew exactly what he had done. The former mate, the rejecting alpha, the man who left Ilara Ashwin to freeze in the snow. Now he stood at the gates, looking exhausted. His clothes were travel-worn. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. Weeks ago, the sight might have inspired sympathy. Now it mostly inspired suspicion. The palace had seen too many convenient regrets lately. Ilara watched his arrival from a distance. Her reaction surprised her. She expected anger, expected pain, expected old wounds reopening. Instead, she felt strangely detached, as though Damon belonged to another life, a life that no longer fit. The realization felt both sad and liberating. Several hours later, the meeting finally happened. Kaelin permitted it, barely. The royal wolf objected immediately. The massive white wolf positioned herself directly beside Ilara and refused to move. No one challenged her, especially after she bared her teeth at the first guard who approached too closely. The message seemed clear. Proceed carefully. Damon entered the private audience chamber, alone. For several seconds, nobody spoke. He looked at Alara. Really looked at her. Perhaps for the first time in years. The sight clearly affected him, because guilt flashed across his face instantly. You look well. The words sounded inadequate the moment they left his mouth. Alara simply nodded. Silence followed. Heavy, awkward, uncomfortable. Eventually, Damon stepped forward. I made a mistake. The confession arrived quickly. Too quickly. As though rehearsed. Several advisors exchanged unimpressed looks. Kaelin remained silent, watching, waiting. Damon continued. I was wrong. Another pause. Then, I should never have rejected you. The room stayed quiet, not because people were moved, because they were unconvinced. The timing remained impossible to ignore. Weeks ago, Alara was unwanted. Now she was suddenly irreplaceable. The transformation felt suspicious. Damon turned fully toward her. Desperation crept into his expression. Give me another chance. The request echoed through the chamber. Several people visibly tensed. Because some words arrive far too late. Alara stared at him. The man she once loved. The man whose rejection shattered her life. The man who never came searching when she disappeared into a snowstorm. Now he wanted another chance. The irony felt overwhelming. Before she could respond, a deep growl filled the room. The royal wolf stepped forward, positioning herself between Damon and Alara. Protective, possessive, certain. The warning needed no translation. Damon stopped immediately. His expression darkened, not with anger, with frustration, because even he could see the obvious. The wolf trusted Alara completely, and trusted him not at all. Several uncomfortable seconds passed. Then Damon looked toward the Alpha King. His jaw tightened, his patience finally breaking. Well, the challenge hung in the air. Every eye turned toward Kaelin. The room seemed to hold its breath, because everyone understood what Damon was really asking. Would the Alpha King return Alara, or would he stand in the way? Kaelin rose slowly from his chair, calm, controlled, dangerous, and the look in his eyes made it very clear that Damon was not going to enjoy the answer. The great assembly hall had never felt so tense. News of the confrontation spread through the capital overnight. By morning, nobles filled the galleries. Pack leaders occupied the lower chambers. Council members crowded every available seat. Even visiting dignitaries delayed their departures. No one wanted to miss what happened next, because this was no longer about one rejected mate. It was about justice, power, and the consequences of believing some people could be discarded without cost. At the center of the chamber stood Damon Crestfall. Proud once, confident once, now visibly uncomfortable beneath hundreds of watchful eyes. Across from him stood Alara, calm, quiet. The royal wolf rested beside her like a living wall, and seated upon the elevated throne was Alpha King Kaelin Draven. The room fell silent as he rose. No formal announcement was needed. His presence alone commanded attention. For several moments, Kaelin simply looked at Damon. The silence became unbearable. Then finally, he spoke. You want her returned? Damon nodded immediately. Yes. The answer sounded confident. Too confident. Kaelin tilted his head slightly. And why? The question seemed simple, yet Damon hesitated. Only briefly, but everyone noticed. I made a mistake. A murmur spread through the assembly. The excuse sounded weak, even to his own ears. Kaelin remained expressionless. A mistake. The words echoed. Then he stepped down from the throne platform. Slowly, deliberately. Each step increased the tension inside the room. You rejected her. Silence. Damon swallowed. No response came. Kaelin took another step. You humiliated her before your entire pack. More silence. Another step. You allowed her family to abandon her. The room grew quieter, if such a thing were possible. Another step. You allowed her to walk into a winter storm with no protection. Daemon lowered his gaze. For the first time, genuine shame appeared. But Kaelin wasn't finished. His voice remained calm. That somehow made it worse. You left her to die. The words struck the room like thunder. No one moved, no one spoke. Because stripped of excuses, that was exactly what happened. A rejected mate. No pack, no family, no shelter. During winter, the outcome should have been obvious. Daemon's face paled, yet Kaelin continued. Relentless, unforgiving. You did not search for her. Another pause. You did not protect her. Another. You did not care where she went. The silence became crushing, because every accusation was true. Then Kaelin stopped directly in front of him. The entire assembly watched, waiting. The Alpha King's next words would become legend. And now, a pause, a dangerous pause. You think you deserve another choice? Daemon opened his mouth. Nothing came out, because there was no answer, no defense, no explanation powerful enough to erase what happened. The room remained silent. Then, Kaelin turned away from him. His attention shifted toward Elara. The atmosphere changed instantly. Softer, different. For the first time that morning, the Alpha King's voice lost its edge. Because this part wasn't about Daemon. It was about her. And after a lifetime of other people deciding her future, Kaelin intended to make sure the next decision belonged to Elara alone. The great assembly hall remained completely silent. Hundreds of people watched, waiting. For perhaps the first time in her life, every important person in the kingdom was looking at Elara Ashwin. Not past her, not around her, at her. The feeling was strange, almost unreal. For years, others made decisions for her. Her family decided her worth. Her pack decided her future. Her alpha decided whether she mattered. And every time, she accepted the outcome because she believed she had no choice. Now she stood in the center of the kingdom's most powerful hall, and the choice belonged entirely to her. Kaelin faced her calmly. No pressure, no expectation, only respect. What do you want? The question echoed through the chamber. Simple, direct, powerful. Elara looked toward Daemon, the man who once held her future in his hands. He appeared desperate now, regretful, broken by consequences he never expected. A part of her felt sad for him, not because she wanted him back, because once upon a time, she loved him. That version of herself deserved acknowledgement, but love and trust are not the same thing. And some bridges collapse too completely to rebuild. Daemon took a step forward. Elara! The royal wolf immediately growled. The sound rolled through the hall like distant thunder. Daemon stopped. Everyone else wisely remained still. A faint smile touched Elara's lips, because somehow the wolf always seemed to know exactly what she needed. She turned her attention back to Kaelin, then finally spoke. I won't return. Silence. The words were not dramatic, not angry, not cruel, yet they carried enormous weight, because with one sentence, she closed a chapter that had controlled her life for years. Daemon's face fell. Several Blackstone elders lowered their heads. No one argued, no one protested, because the decision was hers. And for once, everyone respected that. Relief spread through the chamber, not because people enjoyed Daemon losing, because justice finally felt complete. Elara slowly looked around the room, at the nobles, the alphas, the council members, the people who once viewed her as insignificant. Funny how quickly opinions changed when someone discovered your value. The thought might have made her bitter once. Now, it simply made her tired. Kaelin stepped beside the royal wolf. The massive white animal immediately leaned against his leg, calm, content, watching Alara with those intelligent golden eyes. The sight made her smile, because everyone spent weeks arguing about destiny, bloodlines, ancient blessings, political importance, yet none of those things explained what happened first. The first creature to recognize her worth wasn't a scholar, wasn't a noble, wasn't a king. It was a wolf, a pregnant wolf who found a broken woman freezing in the snow. A wolf who wrapped her tail around a stranger. A wolf who refused to leave her side. Long before anyone else realized she mattered. Years later, people would tell many versions of this story. Some claimed the Alpha King saved the rejected mate. Others insisted destiny brought Alara to the palace. But those who truly understood remembered something simpler. Sometimes the people who reject you only see what you've already given. The people meant for your future see what you can become. And sometimes, on the coldest night of your life, even a wolf can recognize your worth before the rest of the world does.